At my sister's wedding, I refused to stand next to her husband. Later that night, she caught him whispering my name. I am a 32-year-old woman, and I refused to stand next to the groom because his hand had already found my waist once in a hallway where no one could see. The refusal looked petty in photos. In my body, it felt like choosing oxygen. My sister Celine wanted symmetry for the ceremony, couples paired, aisles parallel, our parents 10 rows back with the people who remember our baby teeth. 1 week before the wedding, she texted a seating plan where my name lived at the groom's right for the recessional. I stared at the image until the lines blurred and wrote back that I would walk alone. She replied with a string of softened words, flexible, chill, vibe, as if aesthetics could be a balm for what I had not told her. What I knew then lived in my phone. 4 months earlier, Leo sent me a message that began with a harmless pretext, logistics for the rehearsal dinner, and slipped sideways into something else. Compliments that made my throat tighten. A late-night follow-up that said he felt safe with me, that Celine was a lot when planning, that he had never met someone who got him the way I did. I told myself to ignore, to block, to let it be stress. Then, at the tasting, he placed his palm on the small of my back when no one watched. It was a 2-second press. People will tell you it's small. The body remembers it as a paragraph. I saved the messages and told no one, because secrets inside families grow like mold. You can smell something wrong, but you can't yet point at it without blasting a hole in the wall. I also didn't trust what speaking would cost. Celine had a way of hearing storms as criticism. Love, for her, was a house you curated, flower-centered, napkins folded like swans. I pictured myself as a stain on the runner. The wedding morning smelled like steam and hairspray and peonies trying too hard. I pinned Celine's veil with hands that did not shake and told her she looked like the version of herself she'd wanted to be since we were 9 and cutting up bridal magazines for fun. In the mirror, Leo hovered at the edge of the room in a tux that made him look like the best student in a class no one else had studied for. He greeted me with a nod that could be filed under polite if you didn't know our file. At lineup, the planner announced the order. My feet stayed where they were planted. I said I'd walk behind the ring bearer. Celine's smile hardened. She asked if I was okay, voice pitched for performance. I said yes. She told me I was being weird. I said the word no without garnish. There was a pause, then the tiny click of a woman choosing to love the picture more than the frame. She moved me on the chart. In a photo taken an hour later, the recessional looks charming, the couple, a wave of well-dressed joy, and me 10 steps back, smiling with my teeth. After dinner, speeches made the room damp with nostalgia. Our father told the story about the summer Celine saved a nest of robin eggs during a storm. Leo's brother talked about loyalty like a coat that keeps you dry. When it was my turn, I spoke about the small things that make a life, the grocery lists, the hand on a shoulder in a parking lot at midnight, and wished them ordinary courage. I did not say that ordinary courage is exactly what I did not feel in my own skin. Later, in the yard strung with fairy lights, my aunt asked why I had walked alone. I said I liked the view from the back. She said something about independence and laughed. I watched Leo, too solicitous with older relatives, too busy with vendors, too tired looking when he thought no one watched. He didn't come near me until the bouquet toss. Then he stood close enough that the fabric of his jacket brushed my arm and said any man would be lucky to have me, words shaped like sugar with a grainy center. I stepped away like the ground had a slope. By midnight, the music softened, the bar closed, and people drifted upstairs to the hotel rooms we'd overpaid for because weddings create economies that make no sense. I helped Celine unpin the veil, our fingers clumsy with hairspray and fatigue. She looked like a person who had climbed a high thing and finally sat down. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like flowers and wine and said, as if it were a kindness, that she knew I'd been moody lately, that she'd forgive me for the recessional, that today was bigger than my feelings. I stood there and let forgiveness be a blanket for a fire she couldn't see. At 2 a.m. a knock sounded at my door. I froze. Through the peephole, Leo, tie gone, collar open, eyes too bright. He said he wanted to clear the air. He said Celine was in the bridal suite with her friends opening cards and he didn't want her stressed. I held the door with the chain on and told him to leave. He lowered his voice, the way men do when they think softness is a key, and said I had misread him. He said he had been spiraling and overwhelmed and that the messages were out of context. He said if I told Celine, she would implode. He made his body small and large at once. I told him I had screenshots. He blinked like a man who had expected the absence of proof to be a collaborator. He said there was nothing explicit and I heard the legal tone people use, the one that reduces harm to language. I closed the door. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from Celine, "Do you hate him?" I stared at the ceiling, at the brown water stain shaped like a continent no one wants to discover, and typed a sentence that was both true and evasive, "I want you to be safe." She replied with a heart and a photo of the two of us as children, our front teeth missing, our arms around each other, a caption that read always. I put the phone face down and practiced not crying because crying, right then, would be a kind of consent. Celine found him whispering my name at dawn, not to me, not in a hallway, but in the half-dark of their suite, her name on the marriage license not yet dry. Later she told me he was sitting on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, saying my name in a tone that sounded like apology and rehearsal. She said my name back, steady, confused, and he jolted and claimed dream talk, jet lag, champagne. She said he reached for her wrist and told her to breathe. She said she wanted to believe him so badly her teeth hurt. At breakfast, the room behaved like the world hadn't tipped in the night. Pastries, coffee, polite laughter. Leo kissed Celine's hair and carried 2 plates at once like a man auditioning for the role of husband. My mother complimented the centerpieces as if we were still living in the version of the story that loves cut flowers. I watched Celine's face the way you watch a shore in fog. She caught my eye once, held it, looked down. People clapped when the couple came in from the patio like the performance required applause to keep moving. I have always been the sister who keeps track of receipts and emergency numbers, the one whose purse contains snacks and bandages and other people's secrets. It did not occur to me that my own safety plan would one day include printing messages to a PDF at a hotel business center while a family friend asked if I was excited to catch the bouquet at the next wedding. I said I wasn't. I said that with a smile. Before checkout, I stopped Celine in a quiet corridor between banquet rooms. I told her I needed 10 minutes, and that if she said no, I would give her 10 days and then tell her anyway. She laughed, then saw my face, then didn't. I told her the outlines. I did not say verbs that would live in her mouth forever. Her eyes did something human and awful, drove fast through 5 emotions and parked in disbelief. She said I had been jealous lately, she said I'd been single too long, she said Leo adored me as family, she said he called me protective and smart, she used descriptors like a shield. I said I had messages. She looked at my phone like it was a weapon and told me she didn't want to see. She said she'd ask him first. She asked me to trust her. I said I had tried that word. When I got home, I wrote everything down. It is the most boring act of self-preservation I know. The date of the tasting. The hallway with no witnesses. The late knock. The whispering. The breakfast. My own cowardice and whatever its opposite is called. I slept with the lamp on like a child because sometimes childish things are correct. 2 days later my aunt texted a photo of Celine and Leo at the airport, honeymoon smiles dialed up, a caption about rest. I put the phone face down and listened to the city like a radio between stations. My mother called to ask if I could help return the rented cake stand. I said yes. She thanked me for not making a fuss. She did not ask what had trembled under the word no. Celine called from an island where the water was a color that makes city people rethink their lives. She said she had spoken to him. She said he had cried. She said he felt persecuted by my energy, a phrase that made me sit down. She said he admitted the messages but said he was testing boundaries to see if I would protect their relationship. She said if I loved her I would forgive him. She said love was a house with rooms for mistakes. I said houses also had locks. She went quiet. Then she said the wedding had been perfect except for me. I knew then that the next half of this story would not be polite. Celine came home bronzed and brittle. The souvenirs were not objects, they were new vocabularies. She had learned phrases that made me sound like a cloud: energy, jealousy, narrative. She invited me to dinner to reset. I said yes because declines become their own indictment. The restaurant was bright and loud enough to feel safe. Leo arrived late with a smile that fit his face like a borrowed suit. He said he was sorry for miscommunications. He did not say he was sorry for touching my back in a hallway where apologies would have meant something. I kept my voice low because volume would be an alibi for him later. I said I had no interest in ruining their marriage. I said I also had no intention of pretending my body had misremembered. Celine reached for my hand and told me to focus on the future, on holidays, on children who would need aunties who don't hold grudges. I wanted that future so badly my tongue hurt. I also wanted not to teach any child that grace requires ignoring your own map. After dinner I sent Celine the PDF of messages because screens are unkind but precise. She wrote back that it looked bad but wasn't that bad. She said he hadn't used certain verbs. She said, "What do you want me to do, divorce him over this?" I wrote that I wanted her to know, to not be alone with a secret she didn't choose. She wrote that secrets were heavy and I should carry this one better. The family split along lines I could have drawn in pencil months ago. Our mother asked me to be wise, which in our house means be quiet. An uncle called to say men are clumsy, as if clumsiness explains hands. Leo's brother, who had given the loyalty toast, messaged me privately to say he had believed his brother could be better than his worst habits and was disappointed to find no new habits. My Aunt Lila asked me if I had eaten. Then she asked me what I needed to not hate myself in 10 years. I said I needed a plan that didn't require me to burn a bridge to prove I wasn't the arsonist. The next plan was small, boundaries that looked like topography. I would not be alone with Leo. I would not attend events where alcohol and dim lighting made excuses like do. I would not sit on the aisle at family functions that required hugging. I wrote the rules in my notes app as if the phone could hold them for me. I told Celine the boundaries gently. She said I was dramatic. She said I had always liked rules because rules felt like love to me. She said she loved me more when I wasn't holding a clipboard. I said loving me when I am inconvenient is the test. She hung up because tests make her panicky. The first real breach came at our parents' anniversary party. The hosting restaurant had a corridor lined with framed photos of celebrities who had eaten there, which is to say a corridor designed for lingering. Leo stepped into my path with 2 drinks. He said he wanted peace. He said Celine was fragile. He said I had power over their happiness and that made me responsible. The words chose a tone between flirtation and threat. He was shopping for whatever currency I'd accept. I told him my only power was choosing where to stand. I stepped around him. He reached, instinct, habit, arrogance, I don't know, and his fingers grazed my elbow. I said his name in a voice I learned in summer camp to stop boys from pushing kids into the lake. He dropped his hand. A cousin saw the moment and widened her eyes the way relatives widen theirs when they file something for later. She asked me in the bathroom if I was okay. I said yes because bathroom stalls are not where you indict marriages. On the drive home, my hand shook on the wheel hard enough that I pulled over and sat with the hazard lights blinking like an apology I couldn't fix. That night Celine texted, asking if I had glared at Leo. I told her what happened in 9 calm sentences. She wrote back that I was misinterpreting body language, that he was Mediterranean, as if geography required my skin to be a classroom. I asked her to read the messages again. She said she had deleted them. She said she was choosing their future. She said I could choose to be part of it or not. The ultimatum hung there between us like a ceiling fan about to fall. The next morning I printed the messages again, this time to paper, and put them in a manila envelope because manila is the color of bureaucracy and I needed the authority. I placed the envelope in a drawer and hoped I would never need it. Hope is not a plan. I also opened a notes file titled Incidents, with dates, locations, 2-sentence summaries, witnesses when I had them. It felt paranoid. It felt like washing your hands in winter, excessive until the first cough. 2 weeks later, Celine called late. The sound of her breath had currents in it. She said she had woken again to Leo speaking in the dark. My name shaped his mouth. This time there was no dream to blame. She had said, half asleep, "Do you love her?" He had said, fully awake, "No." She had asked, "Then why?" He had answered, "Because she doesn't ask for me to be someone else." Celine spoke the words to me like she was reading a weather report neither of us could change. Then she pivoted, swift as a dancer. "Perhaps," she said, "he meant that I wasn't judgmental, that I was easy to talk to, that she and I had different styles." I said nothing because any word would land like choosing a weapon. The next family gathering was a Sunday lunch at our parents' house. Leo arrived late and loud with flowers and stories. He kissed our mother's cheek and fixed a cabinet door like a sitcom son-in-law. He placed a peach on my plate because he remembered I liked peaches as a child. It was performative kindness, and I recognized the strategy because I had used its cousin in relationships I was trying to save: give the crowd a reason to root for you. When the table cleared, Lila asked if anyone wanted tea. The room's temperature changed the way it does before thunderstorms. Celine set down her glass and said she wanted to clarify the narrative. She said I had misunderstood things. She said Leo admitted to sending over-friendly messages during pre-wedding stress. She said he had apologized. She said I was making it bigger. Our mother nodded like nodding could make a bridge where none existed. Our father stirred his tea and watched the spoon, a man who has learned to be careful when women are naming disasters different things. I told them, calm as paper, that my boundaries were not a punishment. I said I loved Celine. I said I did not trust Leo. Silence landed on the table like cutlery. Leo smiled the way people smile when they're about to play a card. He said he was worried for me, that my past had made me skeptical about good men. He said he was praying I meet someone who teaches me to soften. He looked at the room like the jury he had been addressing all along. He turned my caution into pathology with the ease of a man who practices. I took a breath that felt like standing on a high board. Then I said I had brought something. I pulled the manila envelope from my bag and placed it in front of Celine. She looked at it as if it might bite. She didn't open it. Our mother asked what it was. Leo said we didn't need to do this theatrically. I said that quietly handling it in corridors had not worked. Our father said my name in a tone that meant be sure. I was. Celine opened the envelope. She read. She did not make a sound. Silence grew a second silence. Leo said the messages were benign, that there was no explicit language, that he had been testing guardrails. My aunt, God bless her, said in a low voice that guardrails are for the driver, not for the cliff. Celine reached the last page. She closed the envelope. She stood up and walked to the kitchen. I wanted to follow. I didn't. Our mother stood. Leo stayed seated. Our father kept stirring. The kitchen sounds were small: a drawer, a glass, a faucet. Celine returned with the envelope in both hands, like something heavy she had to carry themselves. She looked at me the way people look at a road they didn't plan to take. Then she looked at Leo and said one sentence: "We will talk at home." He nodded, then managed a hurt expression for the room, the kind that registers as depth in photos. After they left, the house did what houses do after alarms: it breathed. Our mother said she wished I had kept it private. I said I had tried. Our father asked if I had eaten. I said I couldn't remember. He cut a piece of bread and handed it to me like a man participating in his love in the only language he knows. For a week, nothing. Celine didn't answer texts. My body prepared for exile because exile is easier to pre-grieve than surprise. Then she called. Her voice held for the first time since the wedding a thing like honesty. She said they had fought until morning. She said he cried and then he didn't, then he told her I had misread, then he told her he admired me, then he asked her to defend him. She said she had asked him to leave for a while. He said he felt abandoned. He moved into his brother's spare room. She asked me, very quietly, not to tell anyone. I said secrets are heavy and I had carried enough. She said she knew. People will want a neat ending here: a divorce decree, a redemption arc, a porch photo with sisters on a swing. What I have is slower. Celine started therapy. Leo sent a letter to our parents about regret and my work and owning my patterns. He did not send one to me. He texted once to say he hoped I would forgive him when I'm better. I did not reply because my forgiveness is not rehab currency. At Easter, Celine asked if I would sit beside her in church. We had not done that since we were teenagers. During the hymn, her hand found mine and stayed. I did not look at her. I watched our mother sing, eyes lifted, a woman who has not yet learned that prayer can also sound like a daughter refusing to keep a secret. Our father coughed at the wrong time and apologized to no one. Afterward, in the parking lot, Celine said she was not ready to leave him, that vows mean trying, that trying meant rules he had to accept. I said I would not be in their house alone with him. She said she understood. She meant it. Then she didn't. Then she did again. This is what trying looks like. Consequences developed in odd places. A family friend stopped inviting me to events because my standards made people nervous. My boss told me I seemed distracted. I started running in the mornings because motion is the only prayer I trust. I made a folder labeled Protect with copies of everything and a spare phone I keep charged for no reason I care to admit. I stopped explaining my boundaries as if they were negotiable and started naming them as if they were roads on a map. People who love you will take the road. People who love control will ask if there's a shortcut. Months later, Celine knocked on my door with a small bag and stayed 2 nights. She didn't give me a speech. She slept and ate toast and watched a show where nothing bad happens for 30 minutes and then the bad thing is a lost dog. On the second morning, she said she had recorded him after he came home drunk and said my name again, this time in the kitchen. She said hearing it from outside his mouth did something inside hers. She didn't show me the recording. She didn't have to. We sat with our coffee and made a list of lawyers and the order of packing. Then she went home and did none of it that week. The week after, she did some of it. The week after that, she did more. That's what leaving looks like when vows are not paper but muscle. When people ask what happened, I say as little as kindness allows. I say I didn't stand next to my brother-in-law at my sister's wedding and later that night she heard him whisper my name. The rest lives in a drawer that locks and a body that remembers which corridors are safe. I still want the porch photo. I might get a different porch, a different photo. I keep a box for Celine at my place with a spare toothbrush and her favorite old sweatshirt and the copy of that childhood picture where we are gap-toothed and holding on to each other like the swing might throw us. If you need a moral, I don't have one. I have a sentence I read on days when the house of love feels like it's missing a wall. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors that only open from the inside. Celine is learning where hers are. I have known mine since a hallway taught me my body speaks fluent memory. I still attend family lunches. I still say yes to returning cake stands. I do not walk where hands can claim me without witnesses. I do not step into corridors alone with men who practice softness like a key. I walk a little behind sometimes, not because the view is better, but because distance is the measure I needed to keep loving my sister without setting myself on fire to keep her wedding warm.
Follow me for more stories.